Hi guys, my name is Elsie, also known as Elsie Not Elise. Welcome to my YouTube channel for those that are new here. Today we're here to talk about the Super Bowl halftime show. I usually don't even get on here to talk candidly. This is actually my first time. I don't know if y'all could tell, but there's a first time for everything. This is definitely something I want to do more. There's just so much nuance to music conversations and so many thoughts that I have that I want to bring through this platform. So hopefully y'all stay here with me, y'all be here with me. I'm going to ramble. I'm going to ramble a lot. That's a warning, but I'm excited to do this. So let's get into the Super Bowl halftime show. Now, just a disclaimer before I go on. If you came here expecting me to bash this performance, you have come to the wrong place. You have come to the wrong place. Like, I just want to save you the time. I want to save you the energy. Like, just make your way out. You make your way out. Because not only did I like this performance, not only did I think it was good, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And this video is me talking about why. Like, why did I enjoy it? Because I believe that when we talk about music, we shouldn't just be like, it was good, it was great, it was mid, it was trash, it was ass. Like y'all like to say, I feel like we should be able to talk about why. Why do we like it? I should be able to put into words why I enjoyed something. And that's why I'm here today. Now, going into this halftime show, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, Kendrick is extremely unpredictable. And that's always the hardest part about his artistry. You just never know what he's gonna do next. You never know what trick he's gonna pull next. He just always is so intentional about that element of surprise. Now, if you haven't gone to watch the interviews with Nadeska and Ebro leading up to this Super Bowl, I recommend that you go see them right now because they give a lot of context as to why the Super Bowl was the way it was. Now, I remember them asking him one particular question, and it was like, what can we expect from the Super Bowl? And he said one word, just one word, storytelling. And honestly, when I heard that, I was like, okay, like Kendrick is well known to be a storyteller. There's nothing that this man has put out that hasn't had layers, from music to the music videos. He's a storyteller by heart. But I was like, this is the Super Bowl stage. This is 13 minutes, like at most 15 minutes. Like, how on earth are you going to tell a story? Like, what are you going to do with 13 minutes that makes any sense narrative wise? But he surprised me and he actually did it. But I'm happy. I'm happy with the set list. Controversial. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to explain why. I'm also happy that this was not a group project. If you follow me on Twitter, LC Not Elise, at LC Not Elise, I expressed that I didn't really want this Super Bowl to be a group project. I felt like Kendrick could hold his own. SZA as the guest was more than enough, and I'm so glad that he stuck to that. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I wasn't surprised by Kendrick's setlist choice. Did I eventually enjoy it? Yes, I did. But was I surprised? Yes, I was. I honestly thought he was gonna take a trip down memory lane. I'm sorry. It was wishful thinking. I was like, I want rigor mortis in there. I want a little bit of ADHD. Should he perform money trees? Of course. Do we want swimming pools? Yes. Like, do we want some joints from To Pimp a Butterfly? These walls? Honestly, left to me, I would have wanted him to perform Mama. Like, I love Kendrick's discography. I think he has such a rich discography. And I thought he was gonna do the usual trip down memory lane. But in hindsight, and this is important because I just thought about how he's popped out recently. Like, let's go back to the pop out. He actually did the whole nostalgia show thing at the pop out. He performed his old hits. He brought out Black Hippie. He already did that. So it actually makes sense that he didn't do that for the Super Bowl as someone that never does the same thing twice. But before I get into the narrative aspect, I really want to get into that set list because that's what everyone is complaining about. Like, oh my God, the set list was this or that. Why didn't he perform his greatest hits? One thing that I've noticed, and this is just my thoughts, when it comes to Kendrick, everyone decides to pull up rules out of thin air. Why is that? Like, let's actually talk about it. When he was chosen to do the Super Bowl, everyone was like, oh my God, why is he performing at the Super Bowl where he's not from the city that the Super Bowl is held in? And I was like, okay. I went back, I did some research because, like, it's not good to talk and add to a conversation if you don't know what you're talking about. So I did some research and I was like, okay, does the Super Bowl have a history of picking performers from the city that the show is taking place in? And that answer is no. That has never really been a thing. Like, yes, in 2022, it was LA and they did the whole LA culture thing with Dre and Snoop, and they had Eminem, who is not from California, by the way. But they had all these rappers come in and give like a very nice halftime show celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Loved it. I thought that show was nice. I really enjoyed it. No notes, nothing to complain about there. But it's never really been the standard. And so people did that, and there was a whole pity fest about Lil Wayne not getting chosen and all of that, all of that. And then again, we see that same sentiment play out again for the Super Bowl. People are like, oh my God, why aren't you performing your greatest hits? It's one thing to say, I wish he performed this. Is another thing to paint your preference as what the norm is supposed to be. I think that's lame. I honestly think that's lame. And I feel like that's what a lot of people have been doing. It's like, this is my preference. I wish Kendrick performed swimming pools. Yes, we all wish he performed swimming pools. But is it a rule that every artist that comes on there has to do a nostalgia fest, a trip down memory lane? No, it is not. And I think what a lot of people are forgetting is that, yes, the Super Bowl halftime show leans on nostalgia. Why does it lean on nostalgia? It's important for us to ask ourselves questions before we paint something as the norm. That is because majority of the acts that have been called to do the Super Bowl are legacy acts. These are artists that are definitely not in their prime musically. Majority, like literally, go back. Look at the lineup of artists that have been at the Super Bowl. How many of those artists were in their prime at this? Like probably a handful, probably just a handful. And how many Super Bowl performances have there been? Like this has gone on for decades now. Like I think we're in the third decade, or yeah, it started in the 90s, early 90s. So yeah, this show has gone on for almost 30 years. So, and in those 30 years, only a handful of artists were current artists in their prime. And the question I want to throw to whoever's watching is this. Why should an artist do a nostalgia show when they are in their prime? Because by the time most of those legacy artists get to the Super Bowl stage, they have no choice. No one is checking for their new music. Or even if people are checking for their new music, it's like a very niche fan base. Long gone. But then we're having Kendrick that's coming off GNX, highly anticipated. Whether you hate him, whether you love him, I guarantee that you listened. And that just shows the demand that Kendrick is currently in. And tying back to his interview with Apple Music, saying that he wants to live in the moment, it adds up. It adds up. Because why wouldn't he perform Not Like Us? Why wouldn't he perform TV Off? Why would he not perform Squabble Up? I mean, these songs have taken the world by storm in the last year. Everyone's singing it. 5-year-olds are singing it. Grandmas are singing it. Like, why would he not take advantage of that and use that to push his album, to push his new music? It's a bold move, and it's a bold move that I respect Kendrick for. I feel like that fearlessness to just do things your own way is something that he stuck to for his entire career. And I feel like that's the reason why he's still here. 2 decades in, still at the top. Also, I think a lot of us are forgetting that Kendrick, this is not his first rodeo. He was in the 2022 halftime show performing with Snoop, Dr. Dre, and friends. And honestly, let's go back to the pioneer show, the first ever Super Bowl halftime show in 1993 with Michael Jackson. What song did Michael Jackson open with? I'm going to give y'all 3 seconds. He opened with a song off his latest album at the time, Dangerous, and that was Jam. He opened with the most recent hit he had put out. Like, there's really no rules to this. So it's very baffling and it's kind of funny, to be honest, when people, you can see that they're agitated about something and they're like, oh, what are we going to do? Okay, let's make up a rule. Let's make up a rule so that we could just keep spouting BS. I mean, Beyonce did a halftime show. I know it's not the Super Bowl. I know it's not the Super Bowl. But she recently did a halftime show and it was just Cowboy Carter. And that performance was beautiful. Chef's kiss, gorgeous, beautiful instrumentation, beautiful set design. I mean, Beyonce. Do we have much more to say? Like, she always brings 100%. She always brings her A game, and that was a great show. And honestly, I wouldn't even mind this being the standard moving forward. Like, I really would not mind it because some artists are just incredibly hot and could put on a great show. And why not? Like, why not? And the very, very, I think, beautiful thing is that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, this show is going to be nostalgic. It is. It is because we're going to look back at how this show captured a moment in time, this moment of Kendrick's career. And I think, honestly, looking back in hindsight, even as someone that initially was like, oh, I wanted to hear all my favorite songs as a fan of Kendrick, I'm like, I'm not mad at it. I can't be mad at it. Like, you can't really be mad at art. Now, getting into the actual show itself, one of my favorite things, actually, I think my favorite thing was that Kendrick made it a point to rap. He started out the show with an unreleased verse. That's probably the most hip hop thing you could do. And there was no backtrack. There was no backtrack. You could hear him breathing the whole time. You could tell that it was his actual voice. And honestly, that's commendable because have you seen that halftime show stage? Like, bruh, like running up and down a football field, the cardio, I'm not even sure. Like, I walk up and down the street, I walk around my apartment, I climb the stairs, and I already feel breathless. And he was able to do that and not miss a beat. Like, he was censoring himself. He was switching up the flow because if you actually closely listened, as someone that actually listened a lot to the songs that he performed, he switched things up. Like, it wasn't just the usual performance. He wrote some new verses too. Like, this was as hip hop as it gets. And honestly, hip hop deserved this. Hip hop deserved this. This was a worthy pioneer show. Now, getting into the actual narrative of the show. Honestly, it's even crazy that we're talking about narrative. This is a Super Bowl halftime show, guys. How many artists, and I'm pretty sure you can't count it on more than 3 fingers, how many artists have been able to give us a Super Bowl show with an actual narrative that you could follow? I feel like when it comes to Kendrick, like Kendrick is just a victim of like his own success. Like he's a victim of the standards of intentionality that he set throughout his entire career. Because people are talking about like, oh, but the narrative and the fact that you even have a narrative to talk about, that's crazy. And that just shows his dedication to intentionality time and time again throughout his career. I was saying that when he did the interview with Apple Music and Nadeska asked him, like, what can we expect? And he said storytelling. I was like, okay, you have a 13-minute set. Like, how on earth are you going to tell anything feasible? Like, what are you going to do? And the irony of Samuel L. Jackson playing Uncle Sam, along with his actual name also being Sam. Only Kendrick and PG Lang by extension, because I know it takes a team, could have thought of that and executed it that well. It just felt very black. It just felt very black. And that's one thing about Kendrick. Like, wherever he goes, whatever stage he's on, he's taking his culture along with him. And I think that's really commendable. Like, I think that's really commendable. And I think that's why, and that's something he said also in his performance, that it's always been deeper than rap. And even going back to the rap beef, which I don't even want to talk about too much, but like going back to the rap beef, you realize that that was the same sentiment that kept recurring. It is more than rap to Kendrick. It isn't just like, oh, we're just going back and forth, we're just sparring. Like, the narrative through which he came with the beef, the angle he took, even Not Like Us as an anthem, everything has always been bigger than just music. And I feel like if you look at Kendrick, you can't look at Kendrick through the lens of just what the music sounds like, even though that's important because the music sounds good. Yes, it does. But you can't really look at Kendrick's artistry just on the surface level because he's never giving that. He's never just been a just consume my music and just dance. Keep waving your hands, keep making me dance. That's never been Kendrick. Throughout his entire career, he's always been someone that prioritizes culture every single time he steps out. And that culture could be from a personal standpoint, talking about his experiences, his personal experiences, or it could be a commentary on society as a whole. But either way, Kendrick is always going to make sure that he brings his culture in. And honestly, that was crazy commendable. Also, the narrative of the halftime show as the great American game, as Uncle Sam put it. And I think something that was really interesting was his dedication to that theme of the great American game. Starting off the performance, you kind of saw this loading bar visual starting off the show, and then the set design was like a game controller. Like, what? I'm so sorry. Like, I have watched that performance between yesterday and now like 10 times. And every single time I watch, I catch something new. I'm not going to go in and do like a super deep breakdown into the symbolism because honestly, that isn't me. I feel like my friend Dissect Podcast is going to do a way better job at that. Like I said, this is just me giving my thoughts. So if I leave out anything or I don't really go super deep into anything with the narrative, like feel free to fill in those gaps with the comments. But yeah, one thing that Uncle Sam kept emphasizing throughout this performance was you gotta play the game. You gotta play the game, Kendrick. Like stick to playing the game. Stick to playing by the rules. And when Kendrick started out his performance and performed Squabble Up, like there was something that Uncle Sam said. He was like, "This is too ghetto. Like, don't do this." And then Kendrick switches and does the R&B cuts, and Uncle Sam is satisfied, and Uncle Sam is like, "Yes, keep the show like this. Don't do this. Like, don't perform with your like, your people around you. That's a cultural cheat code." I think that's what he said. And he was gonna deduct a life. He was like one life deducted or something like that. Honestly, go back and watch the show. Like I said, I'm paraphrasing. And I'm talking from the mind. So it's not going to be 100% accurate. But just seeing the dedication to the storytelling and the weaving in of the narrative by Uncle Sam and the set list and using that to kind of tease that climax to Not Like Us, and him not just saying, "Okay, I'm gonna perform it," but like there was something that he said and he repeated that same phrase about it just being bigger than the music. This is about the culture. 40 acres and a mule. Like, this man has always had that dedication, and just seeing him unafraid to play by his own rules, because that was really, I think, the narrative with what Uncle Sam telling him you got to play the game, and Kendrick being like, "Nah, I don't want to play the game. I'm always going to do what I want to do." That's one thing that's made Kendrick stand out as an artist, in my opinion. The fact that he's always just done what he wanted to do. No part of this Super Bowl felt forced. Not even once. Everything was well thought out. Everything was authentic to Kendrick. And that authenticity is the reason why people are so fascinated by him. People are just so fascinated by anything that he does. Even down to the clothes everyone was wearing, the parallel with the American flag and the division, everything was just so wow. Like, I'm just picturing it as I talk about it, and I just can't believe that an artist of that caliber is even as mainstream as he is. Like, honestly, Kendrick is an anomaly, guys. Like, the more I think about it, the more his entire shtick is just an anomaly. For someone to be able to stick to his authenticity, stick to his culture, do things his own way, never play by the rules, and still being in the position that he is. Guys, let's talk about how iconic this is. This is a rapper from the blog era. This is an artist that still has more to come, still has way more to give. And just showing us that he's not here to coast on his own legacy. He's looking forward every single time. He's not here to always be like, "Oh, I'm riding the coattails of my iconic career." That man is always looking forward. I'm pretty sure right now, he's planning the set list for the tour. Like, bro has let go of whatever we watched. Also, I can't talk about the show without mentioning the only guest, and that was SZA. I think she did a great job. I honestly don't even think there's much to say, to be honest. Like, she showed up, she was very graceful, she was very elegant, she performed. I don't know, people are talking about lip syncing, not lip syncing. I don't quite know. Like, I think even if she was lip syncing, it was a flawless performance. She came in there, did what she had to do, did not miss a beat, very elegant choreography. Like what more? What more can you ask of? Like I don't really I feel like people like to nitpick, people like to nip and honestly, I'm gonna say something a little controversial, but the people nitpicking, your faves. Your faves. Like that's all I'm gonna say. Like your faves. Are they capable of giving us something like this? The people that you compare, are they capable? Chances are that answer is no. And I feel like SZA did what she had to do. There's nothing more, there's nothing less. She just had the perfect amount. And that's honestly all that needs to be said. And this is exactly the role that I wanted her to play. I say it again. I did not want the Super Bowl to be a group project. I'm so happy that SZA came. She played her role. She did well. And Kendrick was the main event. He had the spotlight on him. He deserved that. Hip hop deserved that. This show, I really wanted that to be very rap centered, rap centric, because this is the first time a rapper is solo headlining the Super Bowl. Like, we needed a main focus on Kendrick, and I'm so happy that he gave us that. I don't want to talk too much. I feel like I've said enough. I really want to talk with you guys in the comments, but I really enjoyed this show. I thoroughly enjoyed this show. I think this show was a great example of what hip hop performance can bring to the Super Bowl stage moving forward. I feel like Kendrick did a good job. His rhymes were tight. The choreography was intentional. The cinematography of the halftime show, Apple Music, you did a great job with that. Like the visuals, the narrative, everything came together beautifully. And I feel like we have to reach a point where we have to be honest about what we see. It's not just about agenda, it's not just about narratives being pushed, but seeing how beautiful of a moment this is and seeing Black culture celebrated on a stage like that. Like, how many times have we gotten Black artists on that stage? Talk less of getting a rapper. I feel like this is a moment that we're supposed to celebrate. And as a longtime fan of Kendrick, like, I'm a fan. I'm not even gonna be pretend to be like, oh, I'm not a fan. I'm just speaking from an unbiased perspective. We're all biased in some way. I feel like it's impossible to just come and just speak like a robot. I'm passionate about music. If you know me, I'm extremely passionate about music. I'm passionate about rap. Hip hop is what made me fall in love with music the way that I did. And I'm just happy to see it being represented on a big stage like this. I'm happy. I'm really happy about this show. I'm going to be on here. I have a lot of stuff to talk about music wise. I want to talk about the fact that we're prioritizing first week sales over the actual quality of the music. I want to talk about the state of the industry. I have so much to say, and I'm going to get on here way more often. So if you love what I'm doing, click that subscribe button. If you want to interact way more with me on social media, my Twitter is a place to be at Elsie Nautilus. My Instagram is also there at Elsie Nautilus. I interview artists. I love to talk about music. I love to have nuanced conversations that paint music in a positive light. Music is layered. Music is an art form. Like Kendrick said in his Grammy speech, respect the art form. So please stay tuned for what I have coming up and see y'all next time.